Hello, and welcome to the WWIA podcast. We're honored to have you join us in our mission to bring honor, connection, and healing to America's combat wounded Purple Heart heroes. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, we welcome you. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. Please be sure to tell others about our podcast and leave us a review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. On this latest episode of the WWIA podcast, WWIA founder and CEO John McDaniel introduces us to one of the foundation's premier partners and friends, Mr. Chris DeMik. Chris is a part of the American Legion Thomas Harding Post number 1977 in New Lenox, Illinois, which happens to be a WWIA Medal of Honor recipient, having donated over $210,000 in support of WWIA and our Purple Heart heroes since 2010. Absolutely remarkable. We're honored to have Chris join us today as he and John discuss their amazing community of supporters, family, fatherhood, and what it means to give back and make a difference. It's a wonderful conversation that we're proud to share with you. Let's join in with John and Chris now.
Hi, I'm John McDaniel. I am the host of the podcast for the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, Honor, Connect, and Heal. And today with us, I have a very special guest who happens to be a very close friend of mine who I've known for about 14 years. His name's Chris DeMik. He hails from Chicagoland, New Lenox area. I just call it, the greater Chicago area. Chris, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing good today. How are you doing?
Good, buddy. Hey, listen, it's good to see you. For the folks that are listening, we can see each other on video. I'm in my office in Apollo Beach, Florida, and Chris is, I presume, are you in your home there, buddy?
I'm in my kitchen where the magic happens, and yeah,
the magic.
Yep, I'm in New Lenox, Illinois.
The magic does happen there, man. So let me set the stage here for the listening audience. I asked Chris to come on the program because he's one of our super supporters. I mean, your heart, my friend, is as big as a lion's, and what you've done to help the foundation is incredible. And you're one of about a handful of people who are I would call them a super supporter. And these are people that have been with us for a long period of time, who continually give. They ask nothing in return, and all they want to do is help our combat wounded. And you're part of a really interesting organization. You guys are in New Lenox, which happens to be a Purple Heart city. Is that true? Isn't that true?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I met your mayor at one of your functions, and I was very surprised to hear that it's that New Lenox, Illinois, is a Purple Heart city, and you run are heavily involved in almost all aspects of the enterprise there in New Lenox, which is a veteran of foreign wars, a VFW post, is it not?
Actually, it's the American Legion on the south end of town, post 1977, Thomas Harding.
Yes, I beg your pardon. I should be fired. American Legion, and I knew that because I played American Legion ball. American Legion, Thomas Harding.
Yep, post 1977.
1977. Okay, yeah, and Thomas Harding was a soldier, was he not? He was a veteran of a foreign war.
He was the first and only soldier that was from the New Lenox area that was killed in Vietnam in 1966.
Wow. Okay, so let's take us back to 2010. I think it was 2009. I mean, the foundation was just starting.
Yep.
And I got a telephone call, and it was from a contingent from your American Legion post, from the 1977 post, and they were here in Florida.
Yeah, it was Paul Gator.
Do you remember this? It was Paul.
It was Paul came down there because we were talking.
Yep, that's right. And another couple, and they wanted to see that I was real, that it was real. I think, and they called me up and said, we're in your neck of woods. I said, great. So what we did is I took them. I met them at the gates of MacDill Air Force Base, and I gave him a tour of I was working at CENTCOM and SOCOM as a contractor. I retired. I was back there, slugging it out in the goo, um, metaphorically anyway. And I gave him a tour, and we went to lunch. And the next thing you know, the next year, you guys are doing a fundraiser, a monster fundraiser for us with a game dinner right there in New Lenox at the Post. And we continued that tradition for many years, and it was amazing the amount of money that you raised. And today, we looked at the total, and your total support since dating back to 2010 timeframe is $210,000, and that's amazing, buddy. Thank
Wow.
you for all you guys have done. Isn't that crazy, right?
It is crazy, especially when you think of the time too. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I mean, I remember when how it first started was actually Paul. We'd always go to Paul's house to shoot. Paul originally started this a game feed at his house, and Paul had about 10 acres on the south end of Will County, and we would go to his house and we'd shoot firearms, and we had targets and clay traps and air trap throwers, and afterwards we'd go and eat chili and cook fish and everything that people hunted.
Yeah.
So Paul basically wanted to. He's like, we need to do something, for vets. And Paul Chen, my brother-in-law, Paul Gaynor, and myself built a cooker. If you remember that big black drum cooker, said we cook for America, and it kind of started from there. And Paul's like, well, how can we give back? And Paul himself being a Vietnam vet, and I remember looking on the internet about almost over 700 websites, and yours came up to be the best that I could find that did exactly what we wanted to do. And then, like you said earlier, that Paul, Linda, Kathy, and my sister-in-law Kim Chen came down there, and that's when they met you. So yeah,
that's right.
And that's how it started. After that, Paul goes, "This is our guy." I remember when he came back, "This is our guy," meaning you and the foundation. So
yeah. Well, and for everybody that's out there listening, we were talking in the pre-show a little bit, about all of our touch points, and I'll try to get on those. But just to level the bubbles, your New Lenox is like how far from Chicago?
38 miles from downtown. Beep.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll bet Palatine, Illinois, where I grew up, is about the same. I mean, they're all kind of suburbs in that general area.
Right.
But I grew up there, just outside of Chicago. I was a Cubs fan, when guys like, Ernie Banks and and the like were playing ball.
Right.
I was a big, Bears fan, Walter Payton.
Oh yeah.
Was an amazing athlete that I, emulated. As a matter of fact, I wore his number when I played ball.
34, huh?
34.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was the 30. Yeah, I was a running back and a linebacker, and and so, I understand very well, Chicagoland, and so we had that touch point for sure. You and I also like muscle cars. Fast muscle cars. You still have something, don't you? What do you have?
Yeah, I still 69 GS Riviera. I remember when you first seen it, you're like, what? You didn't know that? I remember you didn't know that part about me. You were amazed.
Yeah.
It was a car I redid in '99. It took me about a year. I had about 900 hours into it, but basically built a Stage 2 GS Riviera. So, it's a great car.
Is that a muscle? It's a muscle car, right?
Yeah, that car will run with all of them. It did 12.4 and a quarter with my big butt in there, so she'll run good. So
what do you got under the hood? It's
a 455. It's supposed to be a 430, but I put a 455 in there with Stage 2 aluminum heads and cut a lot of weight off the car. I shaved about 600 pounds off the car, so she runs in at Skylark weight about 3,900. So it'll run with them. So.
Is that got an automatic transmission? Or
yeah, it's got a really built, my friend Jack put a built Turbo 400 in there that he built for me. And he actually just built another one that I had as a backup because Jack's getting a little bit older. So he goes there in case something happens to you, and rebuilt another one. So I got a backup trans Turbo 4 just in case. So Got to have it,
Cool.
I got a part to build another one.
I bet
You had
do.
one? What'd you have?
No. I had a 60. I had a 68 Cutlass.
Oh, nice.
And it just had a 350 in it, but I put a high performance cam in there, a Holly 4 barrel, a Posi rear end, and what else we do? I put some old Chevy springs in there so it sat, its tail is up a little higher.
Did you have the big N50 tires on the back?
Oh, yeah, 50s on the back, 60s on the front, Her
Nice.
shifter, Muncie tranny, all that,
Nice.
So, yeah, anyway, well, it looked a lot better than it ran, I can tell you that. But anyway, then that's cool. And you have two beautiful boys, Kyle and Caden, and you're a dad, I'm a dad, I have two boys, there's another touch point. You like to cook, I like to cook. I think you're a better cook than I am. I see your stuff on Facebook. No, dude, you are on it, man. I got to ask you, how did you learn to do what you do? You make your dishes are all the presentation is excellent. I know they taste excellent. You just look at them and you go, wow, that looks like that came out of a restaurant, man. So, I mean, how did you learn to do, the art of, the culinary arts? Just tell us about that.
I just kind of, from when I was in high school, my buddy Mike used to we'd have a couple happy drinks sometimes when we were buzzing around not after school, but after we graduated. And then Mike would always be cooking on his grill, and my mom was always a great cook, and my dad was a good cook too. And I just kind of paid attention, and it was kind of a passion of mine. And then I just took it in different levels, and I'd always cook and then either feed the neighborhood or go to the post and feed them and say, hey, what do you think? What does it need? And I just started playing around, and I'm like a mini Abe Froman here. I do like making different sausages out of anything, whether it be wild game or goose, venison, elk. And I just started playing around with it till got the recipes just right. And then when I get bored, I just play around a little bit more and say, okay, like right now I'm into this Asian thing where with Ram and Caden and I were watching YouTube the other day, and I'm like, I'm going to try this, and started playing around with that. So it's just a passion. I really enjoy it. I love to watch other people smile and eat and relax and enjoy themselves. So that's kind of a thing how, as you say, Big Sarge likes it. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I do too. I like to say, I genuinely find solace in cooking. Like especially if it's wild game. I mean, that's what that includes fish, and
right.
But I genuinely enjoy it. And I was thinking the other day, like, okay, if somebody said you got 3 more meals, man, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what would you choose? These are your last meals you're going to have. And I was thinking about that, and for me, it's I know we're going down a rabbit hole, but that's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah. I would do huevos rancheros for breakfast. I love doing huevos rancheros.
Really?
And I got a way that blows. Yeah, my sister, my family knows this, and they're like, when are you going to do huevos rancheros again? So I would do that for breakfast. For lunch, because lunch and dinner I really don't distinguish. I mean, I don't really I don't eat. I'm not a big breakfast or lunch guy anymore. But breakfast and lunch. If I had to do a lunch, I think what I would probably do is a blackened piece of high quality white fish with like a spicy red tomato sauce with lots of fresh herbs in there, kind of over the top of that with some sort of a vegetable. And then for dinner, I think I'd go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I've been to a lot of steakhouses,
Right.
But Ruth Chris, for some reason, I think it's the temperature at which they're not paying me to say this, by the way. I wish they would.
Good.
But,
at least get a steak out of it.
Yeah, it's that maybe. The temperature at which their ovens fire is some ridiculous thing, like 1,700 degrees. It's a monster. Their ovens are just unbelievable, and they start with really high quality meat. So those are my 3. I'd probably throw a lobster bisque in there somewhere. But I would die a very happy man if those were my last 3 meals. And so I was like, this guy right here, I got to ask, like I know I'm putting you on the spot, but like what's your favorite dish to cook? If you just say something, you got one more meal to serve your boys and yourself and your friends and family, what would you do?
You know, I'd have to say we have to go the Italian road. I make my own homemade sauce or gravy, depending on where you're from.
Hmm.
Homemade meatballs with homemade Italian sausage. And I'd probably make that, with some garlic bread and a nice salad, and that's the go-to right there. People kind of freak out when they see when Kate and I make sausage because, I buy the butts, I wash them, I clean them, I cut them, I grind them, I do everything myself from scratch. But we'll
Hmm.
eat it raw to see if the flavor is just right. And everybody's looking at
Wow.
us like we're crazy. And my
You're
buddy
talking
Donnie,
pork, right?
pork, yeah.
Pork.
And Donnie looks at me and he starts with like, ooh, like dry heave. And I'm like, relax. He goes, that's disgusting. I go, it's pork sushi. So, but we'll try it raw to get
Wow.
to see if the flavor is right. But I've done the work on it. I know where it's come from, and
Yeah, yeah,
I'm still here. So, but that
yeah.
would probably be it. But believe it or not, my favorite go-to is a turkey club sandwich.
Really?
I love it. It's just something with, and another thing I'd like to make is soups, but I love a
Yeah, I
turkey
saw
club.
that.
I love turkey
Really?
clubs and I love soups, but I cook a lot of Italian, even though I'm not Italian. But that's probably my go-to right there. Is that so?
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I love it, man. I'm glad I asked that question because I would have never known that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it
good
just
stuff.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a Midwestern thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. All right, so let's get back to now the American Legion post here, 1977. You guys have, I remember when I go to these events, that you guys these game dinners that you guys would host. I was always amazed at, the different entities within your enterprise because you got the post, and then there's the sons of, and then there's the auxiliary, and all these people would come up to me from, been essentially the same organization, but entities within it. And I think your post there, the 1977 Thomas E. Hartung post, is the finest American Legion or Veteran Service Organization facility I've ever been in. And I've been in a lot. And that is gorgeous. You
Thank you.
guys have done an amazing job. When you drive up to it, it has a presence. When you get inside, it has a presence and historical content that sets it apart. It is really it's something that you should all be, and I know you are, very proud of. It's got a beautiful bar, you got pool tables, you got some games, you got a place to dance, you got a place to eat. It really is a world-class facility, and I wanted to mention that because I'm always so proud to walk in those doors and automatically welcomed. I felt like I was going home every time I entered that building. And I wanted you to talk about that because there's obviously a ton of pride going there. It's vibrant. And where a lot of veteran service organizations are dying on the vine, yours is thriving. And so I want to ask you, to share with us that equation. What makes that the 1977 post Thomas E. Hartung American Legion post so special?
It's a lot of things, but it's definitely about the people. You have to have the right people, and from all the entities, a commander with leadership, and just people who care. Julie Kohler, who
Hmm.
runs the bar manager and basically is the den mother of the post, I'll say to put it in general terms, but she, is the bar manager. She takes care of everything in the back with the functions. She's also a bartender there. There's some of the other people like Kim Kelly that helps with putting together things to do on Friday, Saturday nights. There's everybody participates, and it comes from above. That I mean, there's people that care. Joe Ratman, he wants to see the post succeed, and he's trying different things. And we've had good commanders like Dan Drismala, who was there um, before him, Brian Claus, and Paul Gaynor was Paul Chen, and there's been a lot of
Hmm.
good people that really kept the passion alive to make it for a veterans place. And nowadays, since COVID, things are different, so you're reaching for different ideas, but there's a lot of key people there, and with the entities, we have a phrase on one of our shirts that we made that it says, one country, one family. and it shows the American Legion, the Sons of the American Legion, the Ladies Auxiliary, the American Legion Riders. And we come together with that for a common cause, and that's basically to help our veterans and to take care of it, and where people aren't selfish. And that was the one huge thing about the Wounded Warriors in Action luncheon that we would have, is they didn't become entities. We became the one family. There was nobody in charge. It was everybody was just there to help out and be there. And that was the great commonality of the whole thing, was this one function would bring the whole post together as a neutral, and just to do what we set out to do. So that's a major thing right there, is the people, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I remember you when I first met, your boys. When I first, in particular, Kyle, and you said, hey, Kyle's interested in joining the Army, thinks he wants to be a soldier. Would you chat him up? Remember that?
That was huge. You took him out, or you took him in the back offices. I remember, to talk to him. And
yeah,
where do you have a retired lieutenant colonel ever give you direction like that? And I was really blessed. And Kyle and Kelly and Caden, I mean, we were very blessed that you were able to talk to him like that. And that's, I have to say this, if I may interrupt, is that was a main focus that the Wounded Warriors did as a personal thing, is it kind of made a lot of these younger guys that worked at the Legion, or their bar backing or doing stuff like that, want to join the service. And they wanted to make a difference. And at that age, that's what happened. Kyle knew he wanted to go in the service. And after talking with you, I wish he would have went to OCS, but he didn't. But wife had field artillery. I don't think he listened to every word you said, but it was just it's what he wanted to do. And then
he served his country. Yeah, he served his country. Yeah, and he looks like a soldier. I mean, he's to me, when I first saw him, like, okay, I'll bet he's an athlete, and I bet he loves the outdoors. And then he joined the service. What did he do, Chris? Did he do a 3-year stint?
He did a 4-year.
4.
And then they had a 4 and 4 with the reserves, but then he re-signed up for another 2.
Okay, so
he went 6.
He went 6. Okay, cool. Yeah, so super proud to get to know him over the years, and then your younger son, Caden. Tell us about that wild man.
Caden is he's the outdoorsman, and he's always been that way. I remember when he was outside in the snow, and Kelly would be calling him to get in the house, and he just he could stay out there all day. He looked like he was getting frostbite, but he didn't care. And when both boys were 10, that's when I kind of started him in hunting, because I read at 10 years old is when the brain starts to really understand things. And we started out fishing for up in Lake Michigan, up by Waukegan, going for the coho salmon. And that's how the whole thing started. I've been doing it for almost 25 years. And the boys would go with it. And then when I'd bring both boys with them till Kyle went to service, so Caden stayed with me on that. Then Caden just became my hunting partner with deer hunting. And it was, it just kind of took it with him. He just loved it. That was his thing to do. And he's a crack shot. And he's good at it, and so he got this year, actually, with Don Ferrand's help and myself, we go to Wyoming every year trying to elk hunt, and we had an opportunity with one, and Don and I agreed, and hey, let's just let Caden take it. So Caden went with a rancher, and he got a cow elk right away. So
I saw that on Facebook. Yeah. Are you still eating off of that?
We got a little bit left, not much. We got about 12 pounds of ground and 1 back strap. And what we're going to do with that, and Donnie and his daughter's going to come over, and we're going to make meatballs and sausage and meatloaf. They want the meatloaf, so.
Awesome.
But it was all good, so.
Yeah, I got to, not to put you on the spot or anything here, buddy, but, I'm a dad. I've got an 8 and a 6-year-old boy, and to me, it's like the most important or significant thing that I'll ever do. Like everything else pales in comparison to that. And your boys are now out of the nest. and you're looking at it, with a few more, years and experience than I have, but I know there's a lot of dads out there. The foundation, the WWIA has, lots and lots. I couldn't even count how many, significant guides, hosts, heroes that all are dads. So there's a lot of people that are dads out there. Just if you had to give some advice, to dads, current, and future dads out there, about raising sons in particular, what would you say?
Teach them how to survive. Teach them to be
Teach
tough.
them how to survive.
Yeah, just that's where the hunting and fishing comes in. I'm not going to be there forever, and just to be good people and be good men. And no matter what happens in life, you're going to be hit with curveballs or hit with a shovel. I mean, life can beat you down. There's a great saying from I think it was Rocky Six that says, it's not as hard as you could take a punch. It's hard to keep moving forward while taking that punch. And that's what I try to tell the boys. I said, life ain't easy, but you got to keep going. It ain't going to stop and wait for you. And I know some people have a little more gentler constitution nowadays, but it's not the way that we wanted to raise our boys. So, like look at Paul Gaynor. Everybody asks him, how do you raise 4 girls? He goes, like boys. So they're become self-sufficient,
exactly.
just to move on with life. So that's the biggest advice is just be real with them. I never ever, even with my nephews and nieces, sugarcoat. I always tell it how it is, and whether that be good or bad, I don't know. But I did what. There's no great book on how to raise them. You just do what you think is right, and that's the biggest thing I wanted to instill with them. And if you start to feel guilt on something, it may not be right. So just teach them that way. How to be self-sufficient was a big thing because that's what my mom taught me. So.
Well, that's great advice, and I'm trying to follow that same thing, buddy. I really am. I think, I typically don't second guess the things that I do because I'll spend, like, if I'm going to make an important decision, I stole this from reading Einstein's book, so I don't want to sound, it's not like I'm smart or anything. I'm just fascinated by brilliant minds,
Right.
And in there, and one of the things that he said was, if you gave him a problem to solve, and you said you got 10 minutes to solve it, Einstein said he would spend 9 of those 10 minutes thinking about the problem and 1 minute solving it. And I thought that's brilliant.
Well,
right. And what great advice that is on just about everything.
Right.
And so, I really, will think about the things. There's some things that are like intuitive, like, hey, this is a no with the boys. That's a flat out no. If it strikes you being viscerally as wrong or right, those are easy. But, I find myself being somewhat ill prepared for the things that a 6 and an 8-year-old chuck at you. Honest to God, honest to God, and
we have a technology gap.
Oh yeah, well that too, but at the same time, hey, I'm an old dad. I'm 58 years old. I got a 6 and an 8-year-old boy, and they're throwing things at me all the time that I don't want to say I'm not prepared for, but I just didn't really think that this issue or this set of circumstances or this question would come at me the way that it is.
Right.
Because you just got to love the purity of their thought.
Yep.
And so what I end up doing is just say, hey, trust your guts, man. I mean, we're products of like 350,000 years of evolution. You and I are, just the fact that we're here, the fact that our children are here, are flat out miracles.
Right.
I mean, statistically, it's nothing short of a miracle that we're actually here.
Yep.
And so the fact that we are here tells us that we're pretty fit human beings, and we survived long enough and well enough to be able to, procreate and bring children into this world. So kind of trust your instincts, but still, I always, find myself sometimes in a position where I'm like laying in bed going, geez, did I do the right thing there? Did I say the right, what I'm saying? Right.
I do that all the time. I'd still do it.
I never do that. I mean, like with business, I rarely, with business or, things that I'm involved in my, personal relationships or whatever, I rarely, wonder, geez, was that the right thing to do? But with the boys, I have a tendency to, to not infrequently, run through my mind, what just happened, and was that the right, thing to say or to do? And, I mean, it's just really, it's a real, it's a privilege to be a dad. And like you say, you're just trying to prepare them for that world out there,
Right.
because you're not always going to be there. And they're going to start making decisions, real soon. Adult decisions have adult consequences. And what you're hoping that you've done is prepared them to make those hard decisions and to do the right thing when nobody's around and to be good citizens. That's what we really want, right? We want, whether they serve or not. Hey, I'm not getting involved in that. That's not my deal. My dad didn't push me in the military. He served. My brother served. My family's got a history of service, but I'm not pushing my boys in that direction or anything else. I'm exposing them to a broad band of opportunities, and it's like spaghetti, man. You hope something sticks,
Right, exactly.
when it's ready.
Yep, exactly. And I just, I think about that all the time because I didn't always make the best decisions. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, but you know what? That's who made me who I am, and I'm going to make more. And I tell them that it's okay to make mistakes, and
Yes.
I also tell them, though, don't hesitate. There's, I should have shot that deer, or I should have done this. I'm like, sometimes you just got to go roll off your gut and go. You got to make a decision to go. And oh man, I screwed that one up. So what? Get back up. Tomorrow's another day. Let's go. As long as you don't get hit by a bus, just life keeps going. So,
Right.
You
That's excellent. You and I are cut from the same cloth. I'm like, hey, make a decision and go for it. I mean, hey, they're 6 and my boys are 6 and 8. So, I find myself repeating, on this loop, these things that are important. And that's one of them. Like, hey, we make mistakes, right? Everybody makes mistakes. Learn from that. Don't be paralyzed, through inaction. I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to do that. My boys aren't like that. But I certainly, and you have to be forgiving, right? If they do make mistakes, you can't crush them. You can't, say things that that hurt them if they make a mistake, because then they'll never take the risk again. So you just kind of, you go, hey, let's talk about what happened here, sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, I think we just try to do our best, right? That's
all you can do. Learn from it and move on, my friend.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Hey, I wanted to mention, I wanted to read something here. I think you'll find this. I think you'll find this interesting. I was. This is about a couple weeks ago. I was, here at the headquarters, and I was going through some old financial files. I was putting things in banker boxes,
Okay.
and and so we'd say, the organization saved just about everything. But the IRS says save it in at least 7 years. Well, we've been at it for 17, so theoretically I could take the 10 previous years and just have it all shredded or destroyed.
Right.
But I can't do that. I won't do that. I work too hard for it, so I'm not going to do that. But I was going through it and just kind of, organizing a little bit and putting it all in banker boxes and labeling it. And, I just figured it was a good task for the boss to do that somebody else would have to do. And I don't want them to make the decision on should this go or stay. So I was doing it, and this fell out. See this? Folks can't see it.
I see that.
But it's a handwritten letter, okay, and it's from a guy by the name of Alan J. Carter, who lived in, and I presume he's still alive, hopefully, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is, what they call Fayette-Nam, right? It's where the 82nd Airborne is.
Okay.
And I remember him, and he came to visit us at Camp Hackett, and he wrote me this note, and it fell out of a financial file folder, and I was like, that's odd, that shouldn't be in there. So I opened it up again and I read it. It's dated. It's dated. I looked at the date stamp on this thing, and it's 2012. Okay, so it's about 11 years old, and it's. I'll read this because he focused. He mentioned something that I think that'll resonate with you,
Okay.
and it didn't resonate with me at the time that I read it. It didn't have the impact then when I read it as it does today. He says, "Dear Mr. McDaniel, I know this is a little late in coming. However, I want you to know how thankful I am for what you're doing for me and other wounded vets." And he capitalized other wounded vets. "I wasn't too concerned," he goes on to say, "about our reception after NAM because there were there were other vets and we all hung together. But what you're doing is getting non-vets involved and spreading the word about what should be done. Again, thank you and give my regards to everybody who participates in your program. Thanks, Al." Okay, so that's the part about getting non-veterans involved. Okay, and you have there in your community. I think you've opened your doors to, like, that's why the Sons of was I think created, right? I mean, what percent of your community that supports your enterprise there, the American Legion Post 1977, what percent, if you had to take a swag, are the veterans versus the non-veterans in your total community of support?
Non-veterans, New Lenox is called the home of proud Americans, and that's kind of a big thing that you see that when, always May 2nd every year, the first weekend of May, we have something called Loyalty Day Parade, and between the VFW and the American Legion, we used to march through town and things like that, and color guards have faded out because a lot of us guys are getting older and body parts ain't moving like they used to, but I'll be honest, say is at the most I see are the non-veterans, and nothing against our vets, that, but which we adore, but there's a lot of, I'll say, civilian help, and people just find it the right thing in their heart to do, and a lot of like our entities, exception, with the American Legion itself and their own, element, but I say that because a lot of the people that are involved that I see right now with the post are non-vets. And they want to do something. They want to make a difference. They want to help. It's the thing. The sad part is a lot of it is the older people, basically 40s and up. But on the flip side, some of like Caden's friends that because they've worked at the post or they've seen the Wounded Warriors when we do these functions have joined the military. Because of that, they felt this urge or this calling. That's what Kyle did, and Brian Kloss's son, Little Brian, did, and some of Caden's friends, like his buddy Jack, joined the Navy, and he had another buddy join the Navy. And so 1%, I think I had that stat when the general was in back in 2019, just before that we snuck in before they shut down the state with COVID, that, it's 0.5% now is the military. It's not the push, like it used to be. So you looked at that percentage into who helps out, it's kind of the same thing. So
yeah, well, I just did some looked up some statistics. This has been pretty constant. I didn't just do it throughout, I think, our nation's history, but the last statistic I saw about what percent ever wears a uniform of our American society, the answer that I came up with was 7%. So like 7%, of the society actually ever, joins, raises their right hand. So, wow, it's really a small percentage.
It is.
If you think about it, right? And so that's why I think that's why I think his note that I just read, Alan's note, is right on, and you probably experienced the same thing. I'll bet. I don't want to, I wouldn't want to guess, but I'll bet your post is probably 80-20, like maybe 80% civilian or that never actually
that's a good
served.
number. That's a good number. Yep.
I mean, so there you go. You guys have done the same thing basically, and you have to, because it takes a village. These brave men and women have gone off and fought in our country's wars, for 225 years, and when they come back home or, take off their uniform, then what? And that's why what you guys are doing at your post is so important, because you really need that 80%, to really keep the post vibrant and keep, they're called VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations. That has the word service in it, right?
Right.
That's what you guys do. You serve, and you've created an amazing environment and a tribute to history and all those that have gone before you in that, in that geographic region of New Lenox. You have a place for them if they, and it's a great place. So, and
I
you
appreciate
really,
that.
yeah, and you should really be commended, buddy, for what you guys have done. $210,000. I mean, that's a pile of cash. And he never asked me he never said, do this, do that, with this. You just said keep doing good stuff. I just want to, express, my sincere gratitude, the organization's gratitude, and the combat wounded that we serve, their collective gratitude for being such a great patriot and such amazing people who've really helped our wounded, and help them recover. This idea of, honor, connect, and heal. You guys have put your money literally where your mouth is and done a great thing and moved, the football down the field. And I just want to, publicly thank you for all that hard work, because it's a ton of work, man. What you guys, it's thankless work, and you can't do it. People won't do it, can't do it unless they have, the servant's mentality or a servant's heart. And you guys certainly do. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'm glad that we could help. I wish we could do more, because there's always that charge at the very end. So, like, next year, let's try this. And the last couple of years, because of COVID and the way the rest of the world is right now, we had to take a pause. But I think about that all the time. Like, even to recharge, because it is a lot of time involved, and you have to have the right team around you to do it, or else it's not going to work. And you can only do so much by yourself. And I mean, I would stress and stress and stress, and then it works out. It does work out, and you got the right people that come by with a smile, give you a kick in the ass, and say, "Come on, let's go. Let's get this done. We got stuff to do." And that's with all the people that are out there to do it. But to keep the people motivated to do it is something. But then you look at the heart of some people. Like, I mean, there's times when I was down, and like Dan Drzmala at the time of the post, and you were there on this one, is that, I just was, getting tired. And next thing I know, him and, Mayor Balderman, name a street after me, for helping the vets. And you were there, and I got the Legion Medal of Merit. And you're like, Chris, that's the civilian equivalent to the Purple Heart. And that kind of blew me away as some of the big things that I remember, or even meeting the general. I mean, that was huge. I mean, we literally got it by 12 hours, got that done before they shut the state of Illinois down. Remember that?
The COVID. Yeah, I got. So for the listening audience, what is that? Was that like 2020 or 19?
That was March of 2020, and literally it was one day. And I remember that we had it, and then the next day they shut the state down.
That's right. Then you and I were chatting before I got on the plane. You're like, "Hey, man, I don't know how this is going to go," but I was like, "Hey, I got tickets." The General Chrisman, who, the two-star, my two-star buddy, is now on my board. He was coming to speak at the venue, and I remember getting on a plane in Tampa and landing in Chicago, and everything seemed normal. We executed the event. We weren't sure if we were going to be shut down. We thought maybe the mayor would come and close the doors and kick everybody out, and there goes the fundraiser. But a couple days go by, okay, because I spent a couple days in Chicago. Actually, what happened was, from Chicago, I took the rent-a-car and I drove it up to Camp Hackett, and then I had to fly back out of Chicago. So I went up to the property in Wisconsin, spent a few days, and then got back to Chicago. When I got back to Chicago O'Hare, it was like a ghost town. There's literally like tumbleweeds running through the airport.
Yeah,
Nobody
you'll
was
never see
flying.
that. So
Never, ever. Yeah, and then COVID, and then we went into 2 years of turtling,
Yep.
and yeah, so we made it through that, thank God.
We still had
But
150 people turn out, which was amazing for that. So
yeah, it really, really was. Is there is I know you probably I don't want to put you on the spot here, but and there's too many people to thank probably on your extended network. But I remember this would have been probably 2 or 3 years into it, so we're probably talking 2012, 13, 14 time frame. I show up. I probably got Jake or a couple of heroes with me or somebody, and
Josh and Mark.
yeah, and you go, that's right. You go, hey man, you're gonna go see the boys in the back, and I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah. You go, well, they're all in the back. So I go, okay. So I go outside of your main facility there of the post, and in the back is this shed, and they got smokers going, and the smell of all this deliciousness is kind of wafting through the air, and I get into this. Well, I don't know what to call it, but it was like a I called it the bullpen. It's like I was like that's where all the magic's happening back there. Guys are drinking beers, and you get a taste, a sampling of everything. There's that's all they're preparing the food that's going to go into the hall, and it was just a great, I mean, it's just a great memory that I have. And we were talking about in the pre-show about you don't get into the bullpen like unless you're on the team.
Right.
Or into the dugout rather. I mean, you just don't get into the dugout unless you're on the team. And I always felt like, wow, it was a turning point for me. I just got invited to to get into the dugout there, and it was just a wonderful thing. And I always enjoyed going back there and rubbing elbows with everybody. And going to Chicago for me is like going home. And right. We have a ton in common, and I just certainly appreciate your hospitality and just a shout out to everybody who's part of that amazing American Legion post there, because it's just it's what you guys do is really fantastic, and other people out there ought to look at you if their posts are dying or struggling, they should look at the Thomas E. Hartung 1977 post, because that's a great American Legion. I think it's if it's not the finest, it's certainly one of the finest in the country. It really is.
And John, we really appreciate that, because we just do what we say we're going to do. And some of the best compliments I've ever seen is by looking at some of the the notes of the field that you guys put out there, or look at some of the other events that Wounded Warriors do that I see on Facebook, and I look and see one of the best compliments I see is they copied my event, and that, like the purple shirts, the purple tablecloths, the gold tablecloths, the way that we set it up. I look at that and I just smile, because that means, hey, we did something right. And heck, John, I remember the first time when you came out, you didn't know what to expect, and remember you thought that it might be some hot dogs over a 55-gallon drum on fire.
I did. I didn't know.
Yeah. We didn't know. It was just fun. And then
just go boldly.
When you go out to the bullpen and just to watch that door open, the smoke billow out, and there's Pat sitting there with the Budweiser going, "Come on in, Colonel." You're like, you're looking around, your instincts kicked in, like, all right, let's go with the boys. So off you went. It was just awesome.
Be where the boys are, man. That's the key. Yeah.
Yep.
No, really, really awesome stuff. It genuinely is. The one thing I guess beyond all of the the fundraising and beyond all of the hard work, really it is the friendships that you make.
Yep.
And being accepted into a community or a group, right? That's so important. And I think that's if you had to say part of the reason why has the foundation been over 17 years so successful, and I think if you looked at who earns the Purple Heart, Because it's a small, tiny, tiny subset of the veteran population. Less than 1% of the 7%. It's a really, really tiny percentage that actually gets wounded in combat. Thank God,
Right.
right? Thank God. I mean,
Right.
it was
Thank you.
probably a lot hot, yeah, a lot higher, like in the Civil War, or World War II.
Right.
But today, and even in Vietnam, given all that served, it's still relatively a small percentage, and like I said, thank God, nobody wants to be wounded. But this idea of being accepted, okay, into a group, especially a group that you don't know, the foundation does that. We do that very carefully. Everybody that's in our ranks, all these amazing Purple Heart recipients who have signed up to be part of our program have found us, by word of mouth or the internet or whatever the case might be, and they filled out an application online and they said they wanted to participate in what we do. And that's a big step, right? That's saying I want to be part of this thing. So that's the first thing that's important. And then all of this, okay, waiting, until I get a mission, and then they get called, and then they, okay, I agree to do that. I'll go with you to South Dakota and go hunt pheasants, or Wisconsin to go hunt deer, whatever the case might be. But then they're going to get on a plane and they're going to fly someplace that they've probably never been before, and they're going to
Right.
meet people that they don't know, and they're going to be on terrain and in a community that they're unfamiliar with. So there's all this uncertainty. But if you have the right people with the right attitude and the right hearts that are accepting of them, just by virtue of what they did for our country, we're doing this for you, okay? And so that's where the honor comes in. And when you honor people, and respect what they've done, and respect who they are, you then are able to connect and connect meaningfully. And in that process is healing. Okay. And that's the thing. If you went off and fought in our country, one of our country's wars, and you came home and you were wounded, and no longer and had to take your uniform off because you could no longer do your job based on your wounds. Um, you know, what now? What now? But to be accepted, to be valued, all these things, are part of what makes it work. And you guys are a part of that. You're a huge part of that. And because you provide the fuel, you provide the backstop, you provide, the landscape for us to operate freely in. And so, I want to thank you for that. But those are very, very important things. If you think about it, you brought me into your organization. I didn't know any of you people. You wanted me to be part of something that you guys are doing and honor our veterans, and you've done a great job with that. You genuinely have. And the Honor, Connect, and Heal, started, really in my mind, about the same time that we met. That's when those ideas really became, if in my thinking, okay, and what is this thing? What is the WWIA, and what is it doing that makes a difference? And it's those three things, honor, connect, and heal. That and we all need healing. We all need connection, and we should all be honored in our own way, shape, or form, especially if you bled in our country's boots, right?
Right. Exactly. John, and again, thank you for the compliments, but I guess the biggest thing that I see that helps me is to know that we make a difference. Well, you listen to the Vietnam guys or the Korean guys, and you met, our three-time Purple Heart Bill. He was on Iwo
Yeah.
Jima, and
Wow, it's
he's getting
amazing.
up in there. He's still with us right now, Bill Mankey, and
Yeah.
I mean ironically, his um, great grandson was born 12 hours in the same hospital after my son Caden was. And he goose hunts
Hmm.
right now, and that's Bill's great grandson. And Bill's
Hmm.
still with us. He's 98 years old. He's just an old tough Marine that he's not going down without a fight. And the show, he welcomes me in his home and talks to me
Hmm.
about stuff to show. And you know yourself, no Purple Heart vet's going to go there and wear that medal until he's asked to, and they don't talk about it. To watch on the days of the event. When I ask who's Purple Heart, I'll give a challenge going to, and people that I've seen that I never knew, and from Afghanistan, Iraq to World War II. You see that, but what gets me when I start the event and I play like one of your videos, and I remember when you first started doing them, it was amazing, and not a dry end place, 300 people sitting there crying, and that's the impact points that you gotta drive home to show. Look, you have the freedom of speech, you have these freedoms because of these people. Remember that. People forget too much, especially nowadays, and people are too sensitive when they didn't have a choice. World War II, you're 18, you joined, or you're in Vietnam, you were drafted. It's like you went in there, and the guys that choose to go in there are real heroes to me too, because those are the guys that, look, I'm making a decision, I'm going to do what I think is right, and they go and do it. So as long as we know that we're making a difference, that's the motivation that we need out there to make sure that we're making a difference to help these people, because people just don't know. You speak a language that only a soldier knows. Male, female, doesn't matter. There's a language that only you know. There's a look that only you know. There's a gentleman at church, his name is Mike, and I'm looking at him, I've been talking to him, for 5 years now, and, finally I looked at him, I go, you're a Vietnam vet. And he looked at me, I go, he's like, how do you know that? I go, you have the stare. He's like, what does that mean? I go, I've been around enough vets where I know the look. And then he opened up, and just to get him to let him know that it's okay to talk and me to listen is what means everything to me. So, and that's what I've learned from being part of the Wounded Warriors, is that part of what the soldier's language is. And do I know it all? No, I know some of the words. I know some of the looks, but that's what I've learned. But honestly, John, this whole thing would be nothing without the people that help and support it. I mean, I don't want to go off on a rabbit trail, but it's the truth. I mean, you got Laura Johnson, who would make all the phone calls for us, hundreds of places we'd call. And if we got something great, if we didn't, fine. I mean, Pat, who would pick up 90% of her brother, would pick up 90% of the donations. I mean, the support of the Sons at the time was Donnie Ferran and all the guys that would cook, and Dan Drazmala, was a huge driving factor, for when, in the later years that we've been doing it, who was the commander of the post. I mean, Brian Claus, his wife Jackie, Tim, there's so many people, Dawn, Junie, Rich, Kelly, I mean, yes, she's my ex-wife, but she was a huge part of it. It's just things like that you look at. No matter what happens in your personal life, you got to keep moving forward for the others. You don't want to be selfish. And that was a big thing with me, that just let's go forward. We all have a common goal here. And I'm looking at a picture right now of like our very first event, and even how our post has changed. But most of these guys are still doing it with us, and it's just pretty awesome. They want to do it. They know the cause. Their family members were in it. My dad was in the service. Their fathers were in the service, and that's when you start seeing the amazing thing. And then when a lot of the vets will kick in and join. A lot of them, they say they did their time, but yet after a while, they start beating each other up in only the language that you guys know. That's kind of amazing too, because that's when they get involved. So, when they get involved and all the other vets get involved, then you feel like you've achieved something. At least that's how I feel in my heart. But then I got to be honest with you can't forget about our number one person, Charla.
Oh yeah, wow, yeah.
There's a special place in heaven for Char.
Char is an amazing woman, absolutely right. And this is a woman who is an amazing gift giver. Her
brother Jimmy was a Vietnam vet. Her brother Jimmy was a Vietnam vet, and I think he was 68, 70. She volunteered as long as she could. She's had a few health issues, but God bless Charlotte. She volunteered at Mantino. Generally, just a happy person that just wants to help. And she's a major contributor, but she just wants to be there to help out and be part of it. She wants to be part of the team. So Charlotte Wright is a phenomenal woman.
She sure is. And how good must it feel to be in a position to be able to give like that? I mean,
exactly.
That's it's a heavy bit she's carrying, and she's very, very generous. And wow, yeah, wonderful woman.
Yep. Even in her will, it's marked down that she wants to give to the foundation for 5 years after she passes. So she's an amazing lady. So I got to give her kudos because she is a great person.
She is. We love her. and thank you for introducing us to her. And she single-handedly has changed a lot of lives. And that's just it's great. And that's the kind of philanthropy that usually goes unrecognized publicly. But I'm glad you mentioned Shar, because she's a wonderful woman and very, very giving. And that's just awesome.
She'll be mad at me that I mentioned it, but I had to. I'm sorry. She needs, to me in my heart, she needs to be known out there for it. She wants to be anonymous, and some things I will always respect that for her. But then there's some things where something like that, she needs to be acknowledged. So
yeah,
I don't take any credit. My team gets the credit. So.
That's awesome. Well, listen, buddy, you're coming down here in April, right?
Yes, sir. April 28th.
Yep. So you and I are going to go fish the bay and have some fun, and I'll show you the headquarters, and we'll explore the South Shore of Florida here in Tampa, St. Pete land, and have some fun and get reconnected. But in the meantime, again, I just I want to thank you again for all that you've done, and I'll give you the last shot on the mic here. If there's something that you have any saved rounds, as we say in the military, that you'd like to expend, this would be your opportunity to do it.
Well, I appreciate that. One, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk on the podcast. I mean, anything that I could do for a veteran or the Wounded Warriors in Action, I'd do. Thank you for all you guys do. I mean, this happens because of the foundation, and like you spoke earlier, that you and I are very similar in many ways as people, but also in our beliefs. The way from raising the boys, and it's not an easy task, and I'm not by myself with that. But the thing is that to be with people with common goals is a great thing, and I wish more people would become involved. Because words are, a lot of people hide behind a keyboard. Show your face out there, and I look at things that way. Get out there and make a difference. Don't just talk about it. And everybody gets tired sometimes. You get knocked down, but pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and just move on. And it happens. So dirt don't hurt, and you just got to move along. And I just hope more people hear this, and just for our people that are afraid to volunteer, don't be. Ask. Go to a soup kitchen. Do something. There's a lot of people out there that need help, and just if we're blessed with the opportunity to be in a position where we can help somebody, then it's your duty to help somebody. That's how I feel in my heart.
That's well said. That's very well said. Yeah. Well, listen, buddy, we'll wrap her up here. Again, thanks to you and your organization, and we appreciate your time today. And we look forward to having this thing on air, and share it when it does hit, when it does drop, with that amazing community of yours. And we'll be very appreciative of that, my friend.
Thank you for the opportunity, my friend, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, buddy.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye.
To learn more about the mission of the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation and how you can get involved, please visit our website at WWIAF.org or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thank you for listening to the WWIA podcast and for helping us honor, connect, and heal our combat wounded Purple Heart heroes through the power of the great outdoors.
If you like what you're listening to here and would like to join our team in our mission to bring healing power and recovery to America's Purple Heart heroes, please become part of our Sponsor a Hero team by clicking on the link in the podcast notes or by going to wwiaf.org/sponsor. That's wwiaf.org/sponsor. Our heroes need you now more than ever. Thank you.